You've been grinding away for the last 2 weeks at your job, 40 hours a week, just trying to stay mentally sane while you wait for payday to come. Now that payday is around the corner, you're visualizing all the things that you might want to purchase, or all the expenses that you might have to pay for, like the bills that are upcoming. But before we get to paying or buying anything, we should consider what is a necessity and what is not. Maybe some of those expenses can be treated as non-necessities and can be cut out in order to make some money to tackle debt. For instance, maybe not every subscription is necessary, and maybe we can cut out a couple subscriptions in order to alleviate some problems somewhere else. So before you get paid, here's a couple mindset changes that you could use that may benefit you in order to get started on your independence towards wealth. So you just got paid. What's the first thing you should do? Well, just pump the brakes for a minute. You don't want to go spending any money unnecessarily, and before you go spend any money unnecessarily, you should have some mental barriers in place to make sure that you're spending money wisely. You should make sure that everything that you're getting is a necessity and not just a vice or something that you want out of impulse. You want to make sure that everything you're spending your money on is something that you really truly need and not something that is just a liability to your pockets and takes away more money from your assets. So the first thing you should do is create some psychological barriers from spending money. Waiting 48 hours is probably a common one you've heard to make sure what you want to buy is really a need and not just an impulse purchase. Other things could be setting a budget and not going outside of that budget. The idea is to stay within the realm of reality of your finances and not live outside your means, which then contributes to the debt cycles that you could fall into. Before or upon getting paid, I would establish a budget, an expected expenses list of the amount of money I'll expect to spend this month, so that I can know how much money I can spend and how much money I can't spend. If you need to spend some money to stay sane, that's fine. Just budget in a reasonable amount. Make a miscellaneous section with like $50 or something. It doesn't need to be a $200 purchase or $300 purchase every time you get paid, just so you can feel free. Your freedom will come when you can actually afford it because you have assets to your name. Once you've created your budget and you have defined your expenses and you know how much you plan to spend this month, you now know how much you can afford to invest, or how much can be used to tackle debt, or how much can be used to build an emergency fund. And that will depend on where you are in your personal plan or where you are in your personal journey. Some people are ready to invest because they're debt free and they already have an emergency fund built. So if you don't know where to start and you just got paid, here's my checklist for you. Create that budget. It will define what your expenses are for you and how much money you have left over, and it will define if you have any debt or if you have any money that you can spend elsewhere or use to invest or create an emergency fund with. So, create that budget. That's step 1. Step 2, define your expenses. Step 3, define your excess amount of money that you could use to spend, invest, or build an emergency fund. This is basically just the money that is left over after your total expenses. So after you've totaled up your water and your heating and your electricity and your Wi-Fi, your phone bill, groceries, everything. It's the amount left that you could either spend, invest, or save. It's that disposable income. You should now know where you stand, whether you have debt that you need to pay down, whether you can start building an emergency fund if you have no savings at all, or you can start investing. So, in your personal journey, if you have no savings at all and you have no debt, you should probably take your step 4 and make it so that you're saving some money so that you have money for an emergency if one ever happens, God forbid. This will protect you, so you don't need to pull money out of your investments. Instead of going right into the market, you don't want to mistime the market. You have an accident and the market is at a really low point. You don't want to have to sell your stocks at a really low point in order to cover that emergency. You want to have that emergency fund in cash, in a high yield savings account, in a money market ETF, and something that's very liquid and easy to pull out, low fee, high interest is the idea. It's not going to be the craziest gains, but it's going to beat inflation, so your money is not just dying to inflation while you sit there and have it ready for emergencies. So that would be your step 4 if you have no debt, but you have money to start utilizing without having any savings. So for people that don't have savings but don't have debt, that would be your step 1. For people that do have debt, it's pretty simple. Same concept. You just take that disposable income and you start tackling your debt. You define how much money you do need through using the budget, and you define how much money you don't need to spend through using the budget, how much excess you have. So start using that amount of money to start tackling the debt and bringing the debt down. Bringing the debt down will be very important because debt will compound and work against your returns of your investments to the point that sometimes it makes sense not even to invest at all while you have debt. So the greatest idea when you're young would be to tackle the debt as much as you can and get it paid off, and then you can start going into investments after your debt's paid off, after your emergency fund is built. So it's pay off debt if there is any. If there's no debt, you start creating an emergency fund. Once you have no debt and an emergency fund of 6 months of living expenses created, you have to use your budget and times it by 6, determine how much living expenses will be. It's not that hard. Just times it by 6 to determine how much your living expenses will be on average, and then determine how much money you will need to tackle that debt. If you don't have debt, you can start investing now. So you can start going from making money to making money work for you in just a matter of changing your financial knowledge. All you did was change your concept of money and how the money works and how it works for you. How does it work for you? This is how. Every dollar that you choose to spend dies to inflation, taxes, and bank fees. So, in order to protect yourself from taxes, inflation, and bank fees, as the cost of living continues rising, you need to protect yourself through the use of assets that rise as quickly or quicker than the cost of inflation, taxes, and bank fees. The Canadian household on average pays 50%, I think it's a little closer to 43 point something percent of taxes in their entire household income. That's a lot of taxes. We also pay bank fees to the bank in the form of credit card bank fees and in checking account bank fees, saving account fees, trading fees when we're trading in investments. We pay the bank a lot of fees as well. And then we also have our money die to inflation. Our money works against us as time goes on, as time erodes our money. So you have to make that money work for you by putting it to use and having it create gains for itself. You have to let your money work and compound and create money on top of the earnings that it's already created in order to really achieve wealth. You have to constantly be putting and contributing money in so that the compound growth constantly continues and doesn't get hindered by stagnant growth. Your investments will typically make returns for you in one of two ways. Either through the use of dividends, where the company pays out a share to you and you can choose to either spend it or reinvest it because it's money, or capital growth, where the share price appreciates, goes from $1 to $10, for instance, or goes up 100% or 200%. That's the way that investors make money and make their money work for them. Every dollar that you earn at your employment makes more money for you using it and utilizing it as a tool rather than using it as a means of consumption, a means of bartering and trading for consumable goods that are now gone, aren't appreciating in value, their liabilities every time you purchase them. So you want to make your wealth multiply and compound in order to protect from inflation. You want to keep it out of the bank and in investment accounts that are very low fee or no fee in order to keep the bank's grubby hands off of your money. They won't make money investing your money in the time it takes to get your money released from your paycheck. They won't make money off of your capital in general. And we protect ourselves from taxes from the government through tax-advantaged registered accounts that the government provides for us. So it's not necessarily a rich people avoiding taxes by cheating. They have registered accounts that are tax deferred, or you don't have to pay taxes at all. For instance, the tax-free savings account. This is a tool that every person in Canada should utilize, especially the youth. We get a certain amount, depending on your age, which you can find out here in my TFSA video. We get a certain amount of contribution room free every year. So they update it every single year, and we get more and more room as our age goes on, as we grow older. And this is tax-free money that we can use and multiply and invest and compound in order to increase our net worth. So it's not necessarily that rich people are avoiding taxes by cheating. They're avoiding taxes because they have more knowledge, or they have access to this literacy that we didn't when we were younger. The schools didn't teach you how to avoid taxes, or how to multiply your wealth, or how to avoid inflation, or how to avoid bank fees, or anything. They just taught you how to be an employee. They didn't teach you how to be an employer. They didn't teach you how to be your own boss, how to run a business. Sure, school taught us a lot of very meaningful things, but it didn't teach us the things that we need to know surrounding financial literacy. And that's why when I get paid, the first thing I would do is make sure my financial literacy is up to date. Do I understand what my money is doing for me? Is my money making me money? Is my money losing me money? Do I have assets, or do I have liabilities? What is my future going to look like if I continue down the same path? Do I have goals in the future? Do I aim to reach retirement? How will I do so? What accounts will I use? Ask these questions. Create that budget. Define those expenses. Figure out how much money you have in excess. Attack that debt. Create an emergency fund. Begin investing. Start investing. More important than anything, start investing. Start considering these things. Change your mental state. So when you get paid, just start thinking.